Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hani Mittal. I lead the product team at Wego.com, and I'll be talking today about mobile web on flaky networks. I know it's not a problem in this part of the world, but in the markets where we operate in, flaky networks is a big problem for mobile web users. And I'll be talking specifically about how at Wego we recently revamped our entire mobile web journey end-to-end to tackle this issue. All right, sorry about that. So a quick overview of the agenda. I'll talk about a little bit about Wego, the markets we operate in, and the challenges we face in these markets. I'll be walking you through the old mobile web journey, the changes that we made, walk you through the new mobile web journey as well with these changes. And I'll walk you through some interesting results, both from organic users and some paid users as well. There's a specific part of technical implementation, specifically around data tracking that we had to work around. I'd like to show you that as well. And then I'll end it with the next steps for Wego. So for those of you who do not know Wego, we're a travel meta search engine operating out of Middle East, North Africa, Southeast Asia, and India. We basically compare travel prices, flights and hotels from thousands of different travel sites around the world, including online travel agents, airlines, hotel chains, and really small, the local travel agents as well in one simple place. And we try to make travel shopping easier by saving time and money for our travel users. So I mentioned earlier that our biggest markets are Middle East, followed by Southeast Asia, and then India, and recently North Asia as well. Now, about 70% of our users actually use Wego services on mobile. That's a combination of apps and web. In some of our emerging markets, like India and Indonesia, that's actually as high as 90%. We do operate in 52 countries, support 38 languages in the same app itself. And because we operate in these markets, we actually get to see the best and worst of the mobile world. So we are in markets like Singapore, Malaysia, UAE, Hong Kong, and Taiwan, where users are using us on a very high-end device. And these countries are known for having some of the best mobile networks in the world. Singapore, I think, ranks number 2. But at the same time, we also have users in high volumes touching us on basically really cheap devices, the $50, $250 sort of low-end devices. And these countries are known for having some of the worst mobile networks in the world. And for us as product and engineering guys, it's basically a bit of a challenge because our mobile apps are really, really popular. They do really well on the app stores. We try to optimize the size down to the 10 to 20 MB, even while supporting these 38 languages. But in emerging markets, it's a bit of a problem because we have a specific use case where a user on a really low-end device on a 2G network in India, let's say traveling on a bus, tries to download our app, and as much as we optimize the size of the app, support multiple APKs, these users may not be able to download the app, so they abandon it midway. Or they download the app, and because their cheap devices only support, let's say, 500 MB storage, when it comes to taking lots of images and videos and downloading more apps, they often run into a situation where they don't have enough space, and they want to then delete other apps. They're not going to delete the daily use apps, the chat apps, and the social network apps. So Wego, as a travel app, which is a seasonal app, ends up being an app that user deletes. And we then have to then reacquire this user, which is an additional cost for us. So mobile web obviously plays a very, very important role in these markets, in terms of the organic users, in terms of paid users, paid marketing as well. And we also operate in certain markets where the Google Play and the app stores are not popular or are either blocked. And that's where mobile web actually ends up being an important go-to-market product as well for us. So I'll walk you through quickly the Wego mobile users journey. We can have users coming directly to our site. We call that the core web app, where people come to our home pages, they do a search on flights or hotel side, where we compare prices from thousands of different sites in one place. where the user then can perform some advanced filtering and sorting and basically find the price of their choice from the partner of the choice. And at that point of time, we hand the user off to the partner side for the actual booking. So that's part of our core web app experience itself. We do acquire users both on the paid and on the Google search organic results side onto this core app. But a larger volume of our paid acquisition and even organic acquisition actually happens on our, something what we call the static landing pages, which is not that uncommon actually in travel e-commerce. A lot of people think these static pages do not have a place in travel e-commerce, but they really do. So we have some page types like the airline pages or the airfare pages as we call them. There's different combinations like city to city, city to country. To cater to search queries like cheap flights from Singapore to Hong Kong, which is very popular in our markets. We have hotel pages. We have a few of them. The end goal of these pages is basically to provide the user with some, let's say, some historic airfares for those routes or for those hotels, provide them more information about the destination itself, and get them to do a live search, which then brings them on to the core web app, and then to our partner site for conversion. Now, with this flow, we had quite a lot of issues. On the static landing pages side, we did have the biggest problem was basically the load times. We ended up paying all our marketing networks on a click basis. So we ended up basically paying a lot of money to acquire these users who would click on these links, whether it's on Google, Facebook, and a multitude of marketing networks. But a huge majority of them would never end up actually getting to the page itself, because it would take anything from 10 to 15 seconds for the page to load. And for the users who did end up getting to these pages, the issues did not end, because the actual conversion was supposed to happen on the core web app, which had its own issues. So as I mentioned earlier, we had a web app, but the experience was quite inferior when compared to our native apps. It was a responsive site, but it was not fully optimized for mobile. What I mean by that is that it was using the same code base as the desktop site. The same set of APIs that we designed for desktop were used for mobile as well. And while it was responsive, the designs were not tailor-made for the mobile user, which basically meant that we really needed to improve the whole experience. And as a lot of e-commerce sites would have the same problem, we had too many trackers for attribution, for our own analytics. We had third-party systems. We had ad tracking. So that slowed down our mobile website quite a bit. So roughly last year, in the second half, we decided we definitely need a revamp. And we decided to do that not just by launching AMP pages, but by kind of revisiting the entire flow. So the first decision we made was to build a progressive web app, and not just build a PWA with service workers that allows caching and push notifications and all those important things that make it work more like an app. But we also decided to build a completely new set of APIs that were highly optimized for this mobile user, and remove all the trackers and get one tracker to be like our single source of truth, which would then enable all the other tracking on the server side. So that was the first decision for us. The second one, which happened very late last year, was to actually even try building AMP pages for some of our most popular static landing pages. I've given you the examples before, but what we decided to do, as much as we wanted to do, basically make these AMP pages the single canonical versions, but we basically decided that since these pages were also catering to our desktop users, we were not sure of what to do with AMP for our desktop users. So we decided, let's just try it out. Let's create these AMP pages for the most popular landing pages and still keep the older pages as the canonical versions. An important thing over here to note was to basically make a smooth transition from these AMP pages to the PWA. We use the AMP install service worker, which basically kickstarts your PWA in the background while you're still on the AMP page. Basically loads all the assets required to kickstart this PWA. When you get transferred, it's a smooth transition. Now, I'm not going to talk about the details of the AMP install service worker, but I do recommend you guys go for Alex Russell's talk tomorrow at 10 a.m. His talk is called Progressive Web Amps from AMP to PWA. He'll be covering a lot of the details that I have left out for the sake of this presentation. Right, so I have some before and after GIFs to show you exactly the kind of user experience impact we made. And I'm not going to cover the details of PWA for now. It's mostly on AMP side for the next few slides. This is one of our typical airlines landing page. This is Emirates Airlines page specifically. Oh, sorry. Right. So as you can see, users coming onto Google directly searching for cheap Emirates tickets or popular destination on Emirates. We serve these pages where once you get to the page, we basically have a form for you to fill up your departure and destinations, your dates. We provide you with recently found airfares, and the main goal is for you to do a search and take you to the live results. The problem with that is that white screen you see right over there. Most of these tests were done on a Nexus 6 device. Of course, on the much cheaper devices, it was even worse than what you see. Well, after we decided to revamp them using AMP, that's what the experience ended up looking like. It was clearly much more faster. I mean, I don't need to repeat that again and again. AMP is fast. We've seen that on different networks that we've tried, on different devices we've tried. When served directly from the Google AMP cache, it's less than 1 second load times for the first meaningful interaction. Another example is flights to city. We call them the airfare pages. This is specifically for flights from Dubai to London or Singapore to London. Very similar to the Emirates example that I showed you. We have a fair bit of information about this route for the user. The end goal is obviously for the user to do a live search. But that white screen over there was the reason why we were losing out a lot of marketing dollars, and we were losing out a lot of users interested in looking for this route, but never actually making it to our website. After we decided to revamp it, similar to the example I showed you before, we had to change the design a fair bit. We wanted to make it a bit more visual. There were some limitations as well, which I'll talk about next. But in terms of the page load speed time, we definitely have some really important gains. Right, so far, I think it's clear. AMP is fast. Speed is very, very important. We did have some limitations as well, though. First limitation, as I mentioned earlier, most of these static pages that we have, we require the user to do a search. And for a travel search, you need the departure city, the destination, at least the destination in terms of hotels, and your dates for you to be able to do a live search. And for that, we provide the users not with just a text box search, but also an autocomplete. In cases of flights, it's basically cities and airports. So as soon as you start typing SIN, you should be able to see Singapore Changi Airport, and more cities and airports matching that query. AMP did not support that. The second one was on the calendars bit. Because we operate in the Middle East, we don't just support the Gregorian calendar. We also have the Shamsi calendar for the people who speak Persian. For people who speak Arabic, the Hijri calendar is an important calendar. And it was not just about the calendars. Because we are a travel app, we basically like to show people the weekends and public holidays and school holidays that people like to see while planning a trip. And the weekends are different in different parts of the world. In the Arab world, it's Friday and Saturday. In Iran, it's Thursday and Friday. The rest of the world is mostly Saturday and Sunday, obviously. So it was a bit of a tough decision for us to make. We knew that we'll gain from the speed, and we knew there'll be some losses in terms of user experience based on this form filling limitations. So we decided to do some tests. We decided to do the form filling on the PWA itself and see if the gains can outweigh the losses. So in the end, the end-to-end user journey ended up being something like this. We would acquire the user faster with the AMP landing pages. The AMP install service worker would kickstart the PWA in the background. The call to action on these static pages was basically to get the user directly to the PWA for a superior form filling experience. That was the big thing that we wanted to prove, whether it can be done or not. Then we, on the PWA itself, we were able to provide a much more of an app-like experience. So the search to, the browsing through the results, advanced filtering and sorting, using the service worker for caching the results, to improve the return user experience, we basically were able to provide this really superior end-to-end user experience that looked like this. That's an example of people searching for hotels in Dubai. We acquire them from Google very quickly onto the AMP pages, where there's a simple call to action saying enter dates, which then brings the user onto the PWA, where they fill in the dates, and then it leads to a live search where you see the live results. I'll repeat that in case you missed it earlier. There's another example for flights from Singapore to London. That's the call to action, where clicking on enter dates would basically just lead you to the PWA form itself. And then what followed essentially was basically all the gains from building the PWA. Right, I'll talk a little bit about a launch experience, and I think it's very important for people looking to build this entire end-to-end user journey. This is one of my favorite infographics from the web. It's called the emotional journey of launching anything great. And I think it's important for a lot of developers who might be looking to build. I mean, the part that catches my eye especially is the dark swamp of, what is it called again? Yeah, basically, in simple words, it just means we were in deep shit for a long, long time. So, it started off being, what do? We don't know how to start. Should we use React? Should we use Polymer? If we build a PWA for mobile, what do we do for desktop? If we build AMP pages, what happens to desktop again? What happens to our app? Build a whole team together. We actually made a few changes in the team to, because we are a startup, we had I'm talking about a team of 1 engineer to build the PWA and 2 engineers to build our AMP pages. And we wanted to build things quickly. We wanted to learn as much as possible and improve the experience. So we ended up spending a lot of time in that puddle down there, managing to come out of it a couple of times, slipping back in. I mean, that's part of this experience. There's so many new things that you launch things, you'll basically need real users onto your soft launch product, learn from it, keep iterating and improve as much as you go. I mean, I'm happy to say that towards the end we were actually out of the all the problems. We're very proud of what we've built recently, given the team size that we have as well. So back in September, we had no idea what to do. We decided, with the help of Google, with the help of all the talks at Google I/O as well, some examples of great PWAs built out of India, like Flipkart and Housing.com to be specific. We decided, let's go with it. In about 3 months, we actually launched our first version of the PWA. This is 2 days after Christmas, so we basically wanted to make sure that even though it's mostly shutdown time for most of the companies, for a travel app like ours, it's also the time where there's a lot of last-minute travel happening, and a lot of people are booking those flights and hotels last minute. And Chinese New Year was right around the corner, so we were expecting a lot of traffic, and we thought might as well bring them on a better product. Less than 2 weeks later, we launched our first set of AMP pages. There were a few million of them for the most popular page types. And what followed was basically, again, hell, pretty much, mostly on tracking, making sure that the new APIs and the new tracking mechanism that we've put in place can replace what we had earlier and still make sense out of it. We did a lot of user acquisition tests as well, which was fairly interesting. And as of last week, I'm happy to say that 100% of our mobile web users that are coming organically or through paid channels onto our static pages are all on the new mobile web journey that we've built out. So if you guys follow Think with Google, just last week, this comes straight out of the oven, fresh. Basically, it's the new industry benchmarks when it comes to mobile paid speeds. It's fairly clear. Speed is everything, and as your page load times increase from the 5 seconds to 10 seconds range, your bounce rates increase tremendously. And when we started to build out this product, we wanted to be in the 1 to 3 seconds benchmark. So let's see where we ended up being. So these tests were done on a Nexus 5 device on a slow 3G network. So before we build the new product, we were looking at anything between 10 to 15 seconds for the first meaningful interaction onto our static pages. And for the core app itself, which is a live search app that we say, for the new user, it would take about 9 to 10 seconds, maybe even more in some of our emerging markets. And for repeat users, it was still around 5 seconds. So after we decided to build AMP pages and the PWA, this is what we ended up around. So as you can see, when the page is served directly from the Google AMP cache, it consistently loads in less than a second, which is, I would say, a tremendous improvement on what we had. But even when the page is being loaded directly from the Wego servers, thanks to the new APIs and the optimization we did, we were able to reach the 2 to 4 seconds benchmark. These are all very, very recent results. We still think we can improve these further. We haven't had the time just before this talk. And on the PWA itself, we were able to reduce the new user first meaningful interaction time to less than 2 seconds. And for the repeat user, thanks to service workers, caching the stuff that you need for the user when he comes back to your app, we were able to reduce it to less than a second. I think we're very proud of this, but we think we can even do better in the next few months. So I'll show you what the results are. I mean, this is fairly important, very, very exciting stuff that has happened in the last 2 months for us. For organic users that we acquire, I mean, we're looking at the entire funnel from acquiring the user to getting them to search details and then the conversion that happens on the partner side. We were able to improve our organic visits. I don't think the key, the rankings on Google play into it just yet because it's only been a couple of months. But on the visits to search, this is the part where we were getting the user to do the actual search on the PWA by filling the form. We saw that improve by 26%. And the searches to conversion, which is completely on the PWA side, we saw that improve by 39%. And as a result, we saw conversions to our partner sites, which we care about and the partners care about. And for the users as well, it makes sense they came in looking for something, we were able to provide them that. So conversions went up to almost double within a month of launch of this entire new flow. So for paid marketing, we have when we build these AMP pages, we didn't just think of them as an organic user play. We also wanted to send paid traffic onto these pages. So we've done that in the past just 1 or 1.5 months, and we've seen a few interesting things. We've been able to reduce the CPC, the cost per acquisition of a user by 10 to 20%. Very interesting, very, very positive signs for our marketing teams. Our ROI has gone up 14%. An important thing to actually note over here is that by the time we did these tests, we had completely replaced our old core site with the PWA. So this, when we're comparing these results, this is purely just using AMP versus non-AMP for acquiring onto the static pages. But the conversion was actually happening on the PWA. If you just take a look at the old journey versus the new journey, this ROI would definitely be in the 50 to 60% range. Interesting thing we did, we tried to send paid traffic onto the Google AMP cache version for pages that had already been cached. We thought these pages will load quicker. Might as well try that for at least for Google search engine marketing results. We were surprised to see the ROIs were actually not as high as it was actually lower than not using the Google AMP cache version. We're not 100% sure of what led to it, but we did notice that if you see the link on the left and the right, the left link is basically the AMP cache version, and it doesn't have Wego anywhere. So we think maybe the users, it did not make sense to the users to actually click onto these links. Right. Tracking is a very, very important piece. I think Senthil from eBay, I was listening to him backstage, and I was pretty much nodding with him the entire time. It's a fairly important thing for us to make sure, that on a per-user level, we are tracking our users, and all the metrics and all the decisions are basically based on per-user metrics. So that's one of the limitations, at least for us. We've seen that, when the user coming from the Google AMP cache version comes to the Wego site, could potentially see that user as 2 different users. So you'd see visits going up where they're actually not. You would see bounce rates going up where they're actually not. And the per-user metrics would all go down where, again, they're actually not. So what we did to kind of work around this was we used the AMP analytics component. And while specifying the config.json from Wego servers, we used our data credentials. We included that just to make sure that our server can read and write these cookies. And then we would pass this information onto our third-party tracker. Important thing to note over here, again, as mentioned by Senthil before, this doesn't work on all browsers, specifically on iOS. This is a bit of a problem. And this is something we also hope to work with the AMP team to improve over the next year. Simple diagram to explain exactly what I said. An important thing to note is the stuff that's highlighted there if you want to basically try this method out. So as next steps, we're not done yet. It's still fairly early for us. We want to do a lot of paid marketing tests, optimize our campaigns, and even change the design of the AMP pages to see maybe we can actually improve the results even further. We haven't been able to do that yet, but that's happening immediately right now. Based on the results we've seen so far, we are planning to create more AMP pages that were not static pages before. We've started to think about pages like destination pages, for example, schedules pages. We want to try out having just one canonical AMP-enabled version, but we have to figure out what to do with desktop users. Still in the middle of that. On the PWA side, we want to try a few things like smart lock and web payments API for a seamless login experience, then seamless payment experience as well, which is fairly important to us. We've tried it on the apps. We've seen some really good results, and we'd love to see them happen on our PWA as well. And then something we're doing right now as we speak, in the next 1.5 months, we'll be launching our new desktop site as well, based on the same, the learnings that we've had from PWA. We're trying to reuse as much code as possible, but then separate sets of designs, separate sets of code base, but using the PWA principles as well. We're very excited to see what we can do with that. And last thing is wish list. Like, we would love to work with the AMP teams to support these custom form elements that are very important for e-commerce sites, certainly important for travel sites like ours. We've launched ads on AMPs recently, and while the page loads fast, the ads might take a couple of seconds to load. So even if you put the ads above the fold, there's a possibility that the user has already scrolled down before the ad actually loaded. So that's something we would love to kind of work with the AMP team and see how we can improve that further. And the most important piece that I've mentioned a few times is tracking. For us to take AMP pages as the main destination for our paid traffic, especially, we would love to basically make sure that we know exactly what's going on, especially when the user's coming from the AMP cache, whether we can use the AMP cache for paid marketing at all. Yeah, these are some of the things that we plan on improving in the next few quarters. With that, I'll end my presentation. You can reach me on my email if you have any questions, and I hope you found that useful. Thank you so much.